The 2019 London Games begin on Sunday as Chase Daniel and the Bears take on Vontez Burfictless Raiders. After pulling off a huge upset last week, Tampa Bay now must face Sean Payton's Saints in a spot where Payton and the Saints are awfully tough to beat. We'll tell you why. And after taking the Cowboys in the first 4 games this season, I'm jumping ship for several reasons, including a massive 10-year trend that you just can't ignore. All this and more on the OFN Today with Mark Lawrence of Covers.com for this Friday, the 4th of October, 2019. On the Our Lads Football Radio Network, brought to you by OurLads.com, providing the best pro and college football depth charts in the industry, and Covers.com, featuring live score stats and odds, considered the most convenient and entertaining source for sports news and facts, with over 45 million visits a year. All right, Mark, good to talk to you again. The NFL week is already underway with Seattle in some circles pushing, some places 1.5. But as I always tell people, man, if it's a half, and I don't care what the game is, I'm buying the half point. And if you were given a 1.5, then that would have been a good spot to buy the half point.
It would be, but it would obviously be a better thing, Greg, to have bought that game earlier on in the week when, in fact, the LA Rams opened up the favorite in the contest. That was before they played Sunday's games.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right. That was real early. That was like last week early.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then after the results of last week, when the Rams laid that big egg, it went to Seattle, the favorite. They opened up 1 and then went to 1.5. So it depends. It's all about shopping and shopping at the right time. So you got to keep a pulse on this stuff all the time because games like last night are critical to the win-loss portfolio.
And it was back and forth with the Rams going for 2, and they said they made it. They replay, they don't make it. Then Seattle, they miss a field goal. Rams miss a field goal. Seattle misses a 2-point. I mean, there were points to be made back and forth in the second half. Matter of fact, even late in the first half, I thought that's where Seattle was going to lose the game. When Carroll was going to go for it on that 4th down, he brings in the kicker, and the kicker misses the field goal, and the Rams march down the field and score. And then the Rams march down the field and score in the early of the second half. I really thought the Seahawks were in trouble there big time.
Well, I think what won the game for Seattle was that unbelievable catch by Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
That might be the catch of the year so far in the National Football League. And it might end up being the catch of the year. When it was replayed in slow-mo, it was absolutely unbelievable. But kudos to him and kudos to Pete Carroll. They've won a football game at home, and now they got that monkey off their back.
Yeah, another big surprise, winning a primetime game at home, right? Or a primetime game in general. That is one good, what are they, like 18-2 primetime at home?
Yeah, very, very good when that camera and the spotlight is on them at home, yes.
And Russell Wilson, big surprise in the primetime, big game like that. He comes up with one of his best game in years. And, at the beginning of the season, I did not pick the Rams to make the playoffs. I thought they were going to have the hangover. Then they get off to the good start. Then the Tampa game happened. And as soon as the Tampa game happened, see, what happened is after they started 3-0, I went, all right, I guess I was wrong. I'll go back with the Rams. And then as soon as the Tampa game happened and the Seattle game came up, I was like, I'm going right back to Seattle and the Rams not making the playoffs. Now, it could have gone either way last night. But the Rams psychologically, they're getting these tough games. Now it's the kicker. They just got some players on their team that not mentally tough. And when you don't have a mentally tough kicker or a mentally tough quarterback, that's going to cost you some games.
Well, part of that lack of mental toughness is the fact that they got to the Super Bowl last year and then ended up losing the Super Bowl. It's very, very difficult to climb that same mountain to that same elevation the next year. Just having gotten to the Super Bowl is very, very difficult to repeat a performance like they had last year. They're finding that out. They're a good football team, but they're not as good this year as they were last year.
Okay, let's get to the games coming up on Sunday, and the London games begin. We have 3 London games, 1 Mexico game. The Mexico game will be the Chargers and the Chiefs in mid-November on a Monday night. The 3 London games, we've got this one, actually 4 London games. We've got 3 after this. The 3 after this, Carolina Tampa Bay rematch next week. 2 weeks later, everybody's going to fall asleep with the Rams and the Bengals. But then a week after that, a good one, Houston and Jacksonville coming up. So there's some decent games. The Cincy Ram game is the bad one, but all the other games are pretty decent. I mean, I don't know about this week's game. This week could also be ugly if Khalil Mack takes out some retribution on the Raiders. I don't know I don't know why he would have anything bad to say about the Raiders. I mean, they traded him to the Bears, for crying out loud. Why wouldn't he be happy about being traded to the Bears? But this is a game we're going to go back and forth here to start the show. With who we agree and disagree with. This is a game we both agree with. We both like the Bears in this spot. I liked the Bears last week against Minnesota. They came through for me. The Bears are 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 versus an opponent off a straight-up dog win. I also just think the Raiders come into this game a little banged up, and taking Burfict out is a huge loss for them. Tyrell Williams, their number 1 receiver, hasn't been practicing. We'll see if he plays. I'm not concerned too much in this spot with Chase Daniel starting. The Bears line, I believe, has gone up to 5.5 now, as it should be. Look, the Bears are a better football team. I don't care if Chase Daniel is playing or not.
Well, this game will be 6 at least when they play on Sunday. They'll get more Bear support between now and we speak and Sunday, because there's not a lot of people that are going to line up on the Los Angeles Raiders with all this traveling that they're in the midst of doing. That and the fact that you look at the Chicago defense, it looks every bit as good as it was last year, even without Vic Fangio, perhaps even better. It's been 9 straight opponents in a row that they've held to 17 or fewer points. That's pretty tough, pretty salty when you know that you're going to go up against a defense that'll put the clamps on you like the Chicago Bears will. And, you got the Raiders in this tough travel situation, as I mentioned here. But the bottom line to me in this football game, aside from the Bears being the better team, is the fact that underdogs in London have struggled. They're only 8-17 against the spread.
Wow.
They don't win football games. They struggle. And I'm going to stay with that pattern with the Chicago Bears here.
Are there any other? Is that like the most glaring London trend you have, or are there few others out there besides favorites and dogs? Anything else that might be of interest?
Well, within the game itself, that's the best, okay, because it's flat out simple.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there's no twists, no turns. It's just what it is. What you see is what you get. Everything else about London, though, is either situations before going to London or coming back off of London, which obviously doesn't apply here.
Okay.
But it will apply in maybe a couple of games we'll talk about here
In the coming
on the
weeks.
show here just a bit.
So that's something to keep an eye on, are the games following the London trips. Even though everybody gets a bye, but that's also you've got some data that obviously must be coming into play after the trip and then the bye and so forth. So we'll get in that in the coming weeks with the first London game. And I'm happy that that they also have decided to play these games. I guess they're being played. What are they being played at night in London? I couldn't understand why they did these 9 o'clock in the morning games before. That it just didn't make any sense to me. So I'm glad the only thing that I don't like about it is the fact that it's bunched up with all the other games at 1 o'clock. I kind of liked the fact that it was a standalone and you could see the whole London deal. But I don't know. I'm not so sure I was in on that 9 o'clock in the morning thing. How about you?
Well, just be glad you're not living out on the West Coast, because that was 6 in the morning their time. And those games would have had to been, you had to DVR those games. You're just not going to get up at 6 in the morning to watch a football game, especially involving teams that maybe aren't all that dangerous. I like the move back here. It's 7 hours earlier, so it'll actually be a night game in London.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be 8 o'clock London time. So it's good for everybody. I think good for the people there and good for us here as well.
All right. Let's talk about the team that the Bears beat up last week, Minnesota. And I know we talked a lot early on for a couple of weeks of the season about Mike Zimmer, and he's a great coach to back as far as the trends and so forth. But I jumped off Minnesota recently, especially last week, and I was happy I did. But you're going to stick with them again this week against the Giants, and I'm not. This is a game we're going to disagree with. First of all, I do not like what's going on with the whole. I mean, we're getting to Kirk. See, the Kirk Cousin thing is starting to make. This is starting to cause problems because now we're starting. I mean, I'm not saying Thayline threw him under the bus because he didn't, but it's starting. You could just feel the tension about losing again these big games, time in and time out. It's a problem. So on the opposite side, you got a Giant team that psychologically they are just through the roof. Whether Barkley plays or not, they do get Golden Tate back. But couple of things. First of all, Minnesota 0-2 straight up and against the spread on the road, so I like that. And I also like the fact that the Giants are 12-0-1 against the spread. Their last 13 after a straight up win over a division opponent taking on a non-divisional opponent. So that's a trend. That's a cherry on top. But I like the Giants. They got a Thursday night game at New England coming up soon. We'll see if they can win a third straight with Daniel Jones at quarterback.
Well, as you know, Greg, I like Minnesota in this football game for all the Mike Zimmer reasons, where he's absolutely dominated teams outside of his division. 16-3-1 to the spread in those games when he's coming off a loss, and a perfect 8-0 in that same row when he's favored in football games. Now, I know the Kirk Cousins situation. In fact, I tweeted this out this week about Kirk Cousins and the fact that I overheard at a sports book that if he had a $5 contract, he would still be an effing overrated football player and a quarterback in this
All
league.
right.
But what he does do, he does pound bad football teams. He makes all his money beating losing
That's
teams.
Right.
So this fits that MO to a T in this football game. So I'm not going to worry about Kirk Cousins. I think he can handle the likes of the New York Giants. I'm more into Mike Zimmer being really, really upset, coming off a loss, and taking on an opponent that he can handle. I'm going to lay the points with the Minnesota Vikings and look for an easy win by the Vikings on Sunday.
Yeah, this is actually I think this is my only upset of the week. The Giants are a 2-1 money line, so this is the one game I'm going to take the Giants to win outright. Let's go to a game we agree on, the Saints, and congratulate Bruce Arians already with the job he's doing with the Bucks. I mean, they were a chippy field goal away from having a nice little run here to start the season. Still a big win last week against the Rams. Now they got to go ahead and take on the Saints. Now I know they're coming off a Monday night game, and so the Bucks get the second straight opponent off a prime time game, so that helps the Bucks. But the Sean Payton Saints, the trends are just astronomical. 13-1 ATS following back-to-back straight-up ATS wins under Sean Payton. That's a huge number. Payton's also 10-1 ATS last 11 as a home favorite off back-to-back straight-up ATS wins versus an opponent with revenge. And the Saints are 9-0 against the spread in their last 9 after a straight-up dog win, including 1-0 this year, because they won their game against the Cowboys after being a dog and upsetting Seattle. So I can't see Tampa Bay winning 2 straight on the road against quality. They're not that type of team, and I'm not sure exactly why the Saints are only giving 3.
Well, I'm a big Bruce Arians fan, going back all the way to his days with the Colts at that far. And he's a masterful coach at not only coaching up his football team, but finding ways to win the money, beating the spread in the NFL career. What he's done is basically he saved Jameis Winston's career up until this point, because he was about to be finished if he hadn't stepped up and improved this football season here, and he's helping him along the way. He is if you will, a quarterback guru type of a coach, and I think he'll be good for Jameis Winston here. But I'm with you on New Orleans in this football game. I cannot back a team that put up 55 points and allowed 518 yards as an underdog. I can't do that the next game. And number 2, as you mentioned about New Orleans, one, they're adapting real well to Teddy Bridgewater. They like playing for this guy. He's a very likable person. Now 25-7 against the spread as a starter is Teddy Bridgewater in the National Football League. He doesn't put up headline-making numbers, passes, and he just manages a football game. He does what needs to be done to get the job done. The other trend that I like here about New Orleans, this is their 3rd straight home game in a row. They're 8-0 to the spread in that particular role.
Okay.
I think they make it 9-0, and I think they take out the Tampa Bay
The
Bucks
Bucks
on Sunday.
Bucks are also 0-5-2 ATS last 7 and second of back-to-back road games. All right, now another game we disagree on, and I am very surprised that we disagree on this one. San Francisco and Cleveland. Now, I liked Cleveland before I saw the trend, and then when I saw the trend, and I remember it because, I mean, how can you forget a trend like this, especially when they keep covering for you? And that is every time San Francisco is a home favorite, you go against them. They have now lost 12 straight games as a home favorite, including the Pittsburgh game, where they won and didn't cover. The Browns, big win over Baltimore. As I mentioned last week, I had them as one of my 3 upsets, so they came through for me against Baltimore. They've won both games away from Cleveland. They get Callaway back, which is a good time to get him back with Landry's concussion. So far, he hasn't practiced. Look, I just like the way Cleveland has responded on the road. San Francisco has done a good job, but I want to see them play a little bit better. I'm still not completely sold on what I've seen so far from the undefeated 49ers, but you tell me why you like them.
Well, as you know, I know Cleveland Browns real well, being born and bred and raised in Cleveland, and this is the perfect case in point where you cannot bet with your heart. You have to bet with what the numbers are in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be watching the football game Monday night with my money on San Francisco, and it's a no-lose situation
I
for
love
me
those.
because if Frisco wins, I win the
There you
money.
go.
If they don't, my Cleveland Browns won another football
That's
game.
right.
So
I like those
it's
too.
a can't lose situation for me. But one other bad stat for Frisco: their week of rest to get ready for this game. They've lost 8 straight in a row playing with rest, so they're not very well. They don't handle rest real well. But the reason I'm on San Francisco in this game are 2 things. Number
Okay.
one, San Francisco is an undefeated Monday night home team, and those plays have been money in the bank. Undefeated at home on Monday nights, 20 wins, 3 point spread losses, and 1 tie in this particular role for home teams that have a win percentage of more than 700, as San Francisco does. The other thing that I don't like about Cleveland here, aside from the big rousing win they had over Baltimore, and that was a very, very impressive win they had unquestionably, is the fact that you have to go back to 2002 to find the last time that a Cleveland Brown football team managed to win consecutive road games in a row. That's what they'll be doing here, to have to pull down San Francisco and leave with a win in this game, to win consecutive road games in a row at Baltimore, now at San Francisco. I think San Francisco, what they do best here, Greg, is they run the football. They're the number 2 rushing team in the league. They average 175 yards on the ground. And what they're going to do is they're going to pound the ball at the Browns' defensive line. And if they can do that, they can open up a well-balanced attack for Jimmy Garoppolo here. I think San Francisco wins this football game and feels awfully good about themselves moving to 4-0.
All right. Let's go to a game we agree on. It's a late game on Sunday, Packers and the Cowboys. And after what happened the first 3 games, I think there were people that are getting a little carried away because even though I took the Cowboys in all 3 games, I still hadn't – I didn't even touch them as far as a Super Bowl team in my futures reports. I still wanted to see proof about that. I figured this was a good game for it to happen against the Saints and no Breeze. But they couldn't get it done. They didn't look very good trying to get it done either. That was just not a good loss. Part of the problem is the offensive line. The offensive line was exposed against the Saints. You got Zach Martin dealing with back issues. Collins is dealing with back issues. Tyron Smith's looking like he's going to miss the game on Sunday. Frederick is not to form yet. He's coming back from the neurological issues. So the offensive line, they were exposed against that New Orleans defense. And Green Bay's defense. Now, look, the Eagles game, that was a desperate football team. And the Eagles, we love them when they're dogs, and they came through. But I like the Packers here. The defense, I think that they should be able to do a pretty good job, just like the Saints did. But even though Adams isn't in the game, we got Aaron Rodgers on our side getting 3.5, 4 points. But we've got the trend, one of the trends of the year that we want to use, and that is that the Cowboys are 22-1 against the spread at home after a straight-up NFC loss since 2009 and 1-18 in their last 19 as a favorite. That is bad. That's why that's part of the reason I'm taking the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, and the 4 points. I'm buying the half point.
Well, it all ties into my favorite punching bag, and that's Jason Garrett when he's at home laying points.
Yeah.
19 and 33 to the spread in his career, that's despicable. And if you take a look here in this football game, you got the Green Bay Packers coming in here off a straight up favorite loss in their last game.
Okay.
That's been their best roll under Aaron Rodgers, 10-2 straight up in ATS to bounce back after that upset loss the previous game. I just don't think Jason Garrett knows how to beat winning teams, and he's just satisfied to get the win and get out. It would not surprise me at all should Dallas win this football game. It would be by a field goal. It wouldn't also surprise me if Green Bay wins this game. So that being the case, 3.5 points, I'll buy the hook in the Green Bay Packers in this game.
Yeah, Packers are on the road for just the second time. First time was week 1 when they beat the Bears as a dog. And let's also throw in the fact that the Cowboys have dropped 8 straight games cover as conference favorites of less than 4 points versus winning teams above 666 winning percentage or greater, and that's where the Packers are right now. So a lot of trends saying to take the Packers this week, and we'll see if they can go ahead and do it. But like you said, they don't have to win the game. They can also cover a field goal game. Right now, 3.5. Let's go to a game that we disagree on, and that is the Chiefs and Indianapolis. And last week we talked about the Colt game against the Raiders as a game to stay away from because of all the injuries with the Colts, and it happened. They just were not the same team. The Raiders took advantage and beat them. That's kind of my issue here, is that I know that it looks like they may get Leonard back, but they're not getting Geathers back. Hooker's out. So the secondary is still going to be exposed at the wrong time, facing Patrick Mahomes in my mind. Hilton's still not 100%. Mac's not 100%. There's just some injury issues that you can't have going up against a team like the Chiefs. And I got to tell you, I don't think the Chiefs I had the Lions last week, and I was very disappointed because they outplayed the Chiefs and lost, and I was very upset about that. So I think the Chiefs, I think they may be in a situation where they can bounce back after not playing well. They got lucky with the win. Sunday night football and all that. Patrick Mahomes is going to play his best, so I'm going to go ahead and take the Chiefs in this one. It's a heavy favorite. That is the only thing I'm a little bit worried about. It's a big point spread.
Well, I'd be worried about the Potomac bomb as well. Patrick Mahomes off a rare game when he didn't throw a touchdown pass. So the inevitable is about to burst forward in the next game. He's also scored 25 or more points in every game he started. That doesn't bode well for a Colts team that's just won 13-1 to the spread in games when they allow 25 or more points. So some way, somehow, the Colts are going to have to find a way to throttle down Patrick Mahomes, and it's never, ever an easy thing to do. But I'm going to lean with the Colts in this football game for the value. Number one, last year when they played Kansas City here at Arrowhead, they were 4-point dogs in the playoffs, and Kansas City sent them packing right here at the scene of the crime as a 4-point favorite. Now they're a double-digit favorite this year in the rematch. I like playoff revenge. I like it real well, especially with football teams that are winning or not losing. I should say not losing teams here. The other thing, the small little quirky stat, like it or not, Jacoby Brissett in his career as a starter in the National Football League has faced 2 teams that were undefeated, and he beat both of them straight up and against the spread.
Okay. Maybe a little money line action there with the Colts.
Look out.
Okay,
Look out.
I'll keep an eye on that. All right. Let's quickly just run through the rest. Bills, Josh Allen, and concussion protocol. What do you do with a game like that?
Well, I like the Buffalo Bills as a football team real well. And I'm not going to worry about Josh Allen in this game for 2 reasons. Number one, the Bills' whole mantra is about their defense. They completely outplayed New England last week, beat them, pounded them by over 100 yards in the stats. And number two, should Matt Barkley get the start and not Allen in this case here, you have the handicapping factor of rallying around the backup quarterback.
And he's not bad. He's not a bad backup.
which would be the case in this particular football game. And I think the bottom line to all of it is I do not like Tennessee. Tennessee is, to me, a good underdog and a bad favorite.
Yep.
They don't know how to handle the role of being a
Yep.
favorite. And when they come off of a double-digit win, they bounce terribly their next game, just 3-12 to the spread against 750 or less opponents. I think Buffalo goes there and wins this game with or without Josh Allen.
Yeah, Tennessee's also 1-16 against the spread, last 17 off a double-digit straight-up win versus a conference opponent. They're 0-2 straight up and against the spread this year as a favorite. And the Bills and Sean McDermott, 4-0 against the spread versus an opponent off a straight-up dog win. So, yeah, I think Buffalo's a better team than Tennessee. But still, Josh Allen, we'll see whether or not that does matter. And what do you think the point spread, how that's going to be affected by it? Because I've seen in some places Tennessee's a 3-point favorite, even right now where it looks like Allen won't play.
If Allen is announced and ready and able to go, you'll see Tennessee go down to one
Okay.
or possibly pick. One or possibly pick. I don't think the move is going to be as dramatic as other quarterback changes, just given the fact of what Buffalo's makeup is all about. So at worst, Tennessee a pick, and likely Buffalo taking 3, which is real nice to me without Josh Allen.
Baltimore, this is a game that we agree upon, by the way. And this is another good spot for the Ravens and Harbaugh. They've covered 5 straight road games. They're 2-0 against the spread away this year. They're a 3.5-point favorite against the Steelers. Steelers are a little banged up on offense. Juju Smith's dealing with a toe injury. The running back, the tight end, haven't practiced yet. Pittsburgh got happy against the Cincinnati Bengals, but that's a pathetic team right now. Baltimore's just, look, you know how I feel about Lamar Jackson, but I have my limitations. This is a good spot to take the Ravens. They're a better team than Baltimore, and I think they'll get it done. I'm not, and if I have to buy the point to take it down to 3, I got no problem doing that. I like the Ravens to win this game.
I agree with you. Number one, I'm not a big Pittsburgh Steeler fan. That one win they have this year, Monday night, was against Cincinnati, who doesn't have a win and will be challenging Miami, the New York Jets, to be amongst the poorest teams in the league this year, and the Washington Redskins. You can throw all 4 of them in a hopper because they're the leading candidates for the number 1 pick in the draft next year.
Well, that's if Sam Darnold don't come back.
Well, understood. Understood.
He'll be back next week.
But I want to say, even if he does come back.
Oh, stop it now.
They've got this weight holding him down there. You know what that weight is?
Mono.
Adam Gase.
No,
that's the weight. Okay.
It's C.J. Mosley being injured and Sam Darnold. That's the weight.
Well, he's going to destroy Sam Darnold because he's going to make him a dink and dunk quarterback, and that's not what he is. But bottom line here to this particular football game is I think the Ravens defense is going to shore up and man up in this football game here. I can assure you that Ray Lewis was popping blood vessels after that football game last week. That's 2 straight 500-yard games in a row the defense has allowed. This was the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL after 2 games. And now they've allowed 500 yards back-to-back football games. You can look for that to start strengthening itself here real quick. Number 2, Mason Rudolph looked like he was working out under Adam Gase. He's just a dink and dunk passer. He completed 24 of 28 passes for 229 yards, and one of them was a long strike. Everything else, they call it a pass. It should have been a handoff. They're protecting him is what they're doing here, and they're going to protect him against the wrong defense this particular week. And I like the fact that John Harbaugh has never lost to the spread in his career when he's been favored after allowing 39 or more points in a game. He's been there 4 times. He's won and covered all 4 football games. I think he makes it 5 for 5 against Pittsburgh in this game.
I guess that means he's got his team's attention after giving up so many points. By the way, in the series, the road team has won 3 out of the last 5 and covered the last 5 in the series. So don't worry about Baltimore being on the road here. And C.J. Mosley, by the way, you want to know why the Baltimore gave up all those points the last 2 weeks? Because they don't have C.J. Mosley. Just look what happened after Mosley went down in the 3rd quarter for the Jets against the Bills, and they were shutting him out. The Jets haven't recovered since. Speaking of the Jets, they're a big dog against the Eagles. The Eagles are not a very good home favorite. They're 1-8-1 against the spread their last 10. as a home favorite. They couldn't even cover the Redskins week 1. I'd be concerned about that. But without Sam Darnold, it's going to be real tough, especially after the Eagles got the big win against the Packers.
Well, the Eagles are one of 13 teams that are 2-2 on the season here this weekend. I write a weekly column in the USA Today Sports Weekly, and I cover the NFL for them from a betting perspective.
Okay.
And my column this week was about those teams that open up 2-2 and how pivotal, critical Game 4 is the teams that ultimately end up making the playoffs. And the teams that ultimately end up making the playoffs that started out 2-2 have done so by really performing at home in Game 5, which is a nice role for the Philadelphia Eagles, who, if you realistically think that they will make the playoffs this year, and I think amongst all the 2-2 teams, they are likely the leading contender to do just that. They should have their way with the Jets, but it's not in my DNA to lay these kind of points to anybody. Even if I knew the final score, I couldn't do it. Jets have struggled in Philadelphia. They've lost 7 straight games and won the money only one time. That doesn't bode well for them that way here as well. But despite all these good stats that are in the Philadelphia Eagles' favor here, I have to put the stop sign up when it comes to laying more than 2 touchdowns in the
We
NFL.
both like Arizona against Cincinnati. I mean, how can you go with Cincinnati? How are they a favorite? I know it's Arizona, but the Bengals are just awful right now. Glenn, their best offensive lineman's out, and it sure showed against Pittsburgh. Now the 2 receivers are out, Green and Ross. They were the last time they were favored. The only time they were favored this year, they got destroyed at home by San Francisco. Yeah, Arizona's losing games, but you could tell they're working on something. I get the whole thing of rookie head coaches, and they haven't won yet, but I just kind of like the direction of what I've seen so far from Arizona as opposed to the Bengals. So I like Arizona this week, and they're 11-1-1 ATS. Last 13 off back-to-back straight up against the spread losses, including covering 10 straight versus sub-700 teams.
I think if you go up and down the schedule, the Arizona schedule this year, this will look to be the only road game that they'll have a realistic chance to win a football game, and I think they'll get it here on Sunday. And I'm with you. It's not so much what is Cincinnati doing the favorite, because the truth of the matter is, if Arizona was the favorite, there'd be an investigation.
Yeah.
They're, they're one of these sad sacks that's going to probably be vying again for a number 1 pick.
Uh-huh.
But But you take a look at the situation here. Cincinnati's coming off of Pittsburgh. They've always had letdowns after the Steelers. It was a Monday night game. They're 0-8-1 to the spread after Monday night games when coming into the contest and taking on a losing team. I don't see Cincinnati getting up for this football game. They couldn't get up for Pittsburgh. I don't know how they can get up for Arizona. And I think this is the one chance Kyler Murray's got to shine, finally shine in a football game. I'm with you. I'll play the Cardinals plus the
I
points.
also like Houston over Atlanta. Atlanta's, we talked about this last week. I think Atlanta's done, and they sure looked done last week against Tennessee. The offensive line is just a mess right now. I think they're in trouble. They're 1-6 ATS, last 7 as a road dog, 0-2 this year. Houston's got a big game next week against Kansas City. I think they'll cover that 5.
I'd be a little bit cautionary here, and it's there's good things to like about Houston. They've held their last 3 opponents to season low yards. That's really, really good defensively. A lot of people don't realize that J.J. Watt is back on his game. But the concern to me about the Atlanta Falcons is, despite their struggles this year, they've only won 1 game. They've won the yards in all 4 of the football games they played. They've outstatted every opponent they played, and that usually comes back to help a football team. So, with this look ahead for Houston here, the possibility of Atlanta evening things out more closer to the stats than on the scoreboard, I'm going to hold my nose and play the
A
Falcons.
nice game, Jacksonville, Carolina, battle of the backups. Minshew against Allen. Both these teams are winning and covering with their backup quarterbacks. Carolina will be in London next week, and Jacksonville will host New Orleans next week.
Well, that's one of the factors we talked earlier on in the show about the look ahead to London, and it's not a good look ahead to London, because when you're a 500 team and you got London on deck, you're 1-8 straight up and against the spread all time. That's exactly the same role Tampa Bay happens to be in this particular week as well. And I have to give credit to Kyle Allen. I think he's done a terrific job, and I hope Cam Newton never sees the National Football League again, because Allen is a very, very talented quarterback, and I think he'll put them in the right direction, much like Gardner Minshew is doing here with Jacksonville. The question is, what happens when Nick Foles comes
Then he
back with
starts.
Kyler? with Gardner Minshew. That's going to be a big debate.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a pleasant decision to have to
Oh,
make
yeah,
if
absolutely.
you're a head
Yeah.
coach. You know, a very pleasant
Sure.
decision here. But I like Jacksonville in this football game. One thing here is these terrific games that Kyle Allen's had, and they've been terrific. You don't find quarterbacks, whether they're rookies, first time starters, or whatnot, that put three consecutive big point spread wins together in a row. And he's off of two big point spread wins in a row here. Now he's going to have to do the same thing and lay points to a football team that's really on the improve in Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville's maybe the better team here in this game, and I'll play them plus the
All
points.
right, and Colt McCoy gets to start for the Redskins. They're a 15-point dog against the Patriots. After the way the Patriots looked last week, I kind of get the feeling that they're going to want to get that ugliness off of them. They've covered 7 straight games against NFC teams, games 5 through 8. I would side with the Patriots in that one. They get the Giants on Thursday night. So yeah, I just don't think this is a good spot for the Redskins after the way the Patriots were lucky to win last week.
Well, you know, you've got the Redskins looking very ugly here. They're one of these, those fab, not so fab four teams we're talking about here. And Colt McCoy finds himself in what you would call a born again role, a former starter that's finally given a chance to start again. And you usually get their best effort in these type of roles here. I'm not a big Patriots fan. I think this football team is as phony as the day is long. They've beaten up on nothing but cupcakes. They've got another cupcake here this week.
They
They got
do.
another cupcake next week. This is going to end up biting New England, you know where, in the second half of the football season because their stats are going to look wonderful, and they're doing it all against Sisters of the Poor. This is another Sisters of the Poor team they're playing here. I can't lay doubles, as I mentioned to you before in the National Football League. I'd only play Washington, but between you and I will not be playing the game.
All right, Mark. So before I let you go, what do you got going on over at covers.com?
Well, we're doing real well. Both college and pro football selections are available there, and I'm posting up a big perfect system play. It's our 10-star game of the week this week, and out of a fabulous system. I'll tell you the system, okay? I can't divulge it because people are going to want to go there to get it, but I'll tell you this: it involves favorites that are in games in letdown situations that have been in this role 15 times, and the favorite has lost the game straight up all 15 times.
Ooh.
That's a pretty impressive perfect system club play. It'll be available at covers.com. It is right now as we speak. You can get that in all of our plays online at covers.com.
Last thing, what do you think about my rumor? I'm starting it. Mike Leach to BYU next year. That's his alma mater.
I'm buying it. I'm not a Kalani Sitake fan. I think he's a cheerleader. He's not a head coach. And Mike Leach back to the alma mater sounds good to me. It's the question can his mad scientist mantra fit in with the silky whiteness of the Mormons at
It would be
BYU?
fun, wouldn't it? It would be fun.
It would be
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely. All right.
It would be fun. But I like that. That's a good call, Greg.
All right, Mark. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a great week. Enjoy the games. Be